This podcast is recorded on stolen and unceded Aboriginal land.
We acknowledge the First Nations and elders of this country and join their calls for justice. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
The memes have begun. It's meme warfare. Meme election.
They've just begun.
My feed is the X feed I have on the Serious Danger account is like dominated by the Liberals. I assume they've got those same fucks that helped Morrison win in 2019 back with all their incredible meme game, right?
So it's just complete trash, flood the zone kind of vibe.
Well, did you see the fashion one? The fashion one.
No. Oh, yeah. The one that's like we need a leader, not a fashion show or something like that.
Yes,
and
it's got Albanese. Albanese, 3 different outfits. Okay, yeah. The first one is him in a suit. The second one is him in a shirt. So he's just taken off his jacket. And then the third one, he was in some kind of high-vis scenario. And then
with the same shirt, or had he fully changed his outfit?
He changed it.
That's pretty funny.
And then Dutton. And then the 3 images of Dutton were just him in the same suit 3 times.
Dutton's I have one outfit, like a real man.
Check out fucking RuPaul's Drag Race over here. Not me. Oh, these fucking
Dutton's like,
morons.
it's giving fail.
Yes. So we've had that. We've had cost of living relief. That's Peter Dutton smiling, and then Albanese in a yes t-shirt saying comic relief. I guess referencing the fact that he fell down this week.
Oh no! Well, Tom, which he denies. For legal purposes. We would like to clarify. It's alleged that Albanese fell off the stage. He says, "I did not fall. One foot went backwards in the wrong place, and I'm fine. Thanks."
I stepped back onto a step. I didn't fall off the stage. Bro, you fell down. There are people helping you back up to your feet, motherfucker. You're in denial, yo.
I don't know if there's like a scientific, if there's a particular angle of the knees at which it could be considered a fall, because I believe that if the knees were to bend to say a, 160 degree angle, that perhaps could be considered a stumble. If the knees bend beyond 100 degrees angle,
right, then
it's a fall, and his knees are collapsed, friends. So he fell.
Dude, I'm watching the footage. You fucking fell. Just own it. God damn. You know what reminds me of? Remember in 2022 when Albanese got COVID during the election campaign?
Oh, vaguely. That's right.
Just
COVID.
Oh boy. I think he had the fuck up with the wage, remembering the wage price index or whatever, blanked on that. Then he got COVID. It was a bit like, oh, mama.
Not a good week.
And then they won. So who knows?
They won. But okay, Advance is also, they're just continuing whatever they're doing. I don't really know if you call this a meme, if it's just something to get people like us to talk about on a show and be like, what's going on here? This is an ad is this on Twitter/X?
Yes, I think so. X, the Everything app, yes.
And it's got the image, it's got Labor, red strip, Greens, red strip, it's got Albanese and Band. And the text of the image says, "Did you know that when you mix red with green, it turns brown?" The text of the ad says, "When you mix red with green, did you know when you mix red with green, it turns brown?"
Millions of dollars. These people have millions of dollars. Also, I thought you liked Brown. Didn't you want us to get back to Bob Brown, you motherfuckers? I thought that was the whole dream.
Oh, is that? No, I don't think that.
No, they mean shit, but I'm saying
they just mean shit.
About,
yes. Brown like poo. Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, you didn't get that?
No, I really didn't. I don't know.
Oh, that's what I assume they're going for.
Well, I'm not racist, so I don't associate brown with bad.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
What a hero, everybody.
Okay. That's right. Yeah. #ally. Okay, other memes. Did you see any other April Fool's memes, jokes, little pranks? I saw that the Greens did do one.
Right. I missed the Greens one. I did see the Victorian Libertarian senator, the senator for the candidate for the Libertarian Party for Victoria. He did a hilarious video in which he said that he endorses Jordan van der Lam. He realised that.
I've realised that property is theft. Inflation is greed. And what Victoria needs to save it is more socialism.
But it was a very funny joke and prank that he played on us.
As a scientist of comedy,
I just finished laughing about it just like 20 minutes before we started recording.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is, and I'm not a professional, Tom, maybe you can speak on this, but comedy needs to walk the line of reality, right? And this is the mistake that people make where they're like, it's like Borat trying to understand the sarcasm thing. And he's basically being like, I'm a socialist, not.
Yes.
That's what but you'd have to do something that's somewhat believable, which is why I think that the Greens one was kind of funny. They posted on social media, just launched the Greens plan for a 420 public holiday and said they were making the 20th of April, 420, a public holiday, National Chill Out Day, it would be called. Of course, that is a little joke, but we do want to legalize weed and we do want, more public holidays. So could be true.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah. And then when did they announce that it was a prank? Like immediately?
Well, that's one thing that it falls afoul of traditional, April Fool's rules, which people seem to forget these days. You have to pull the prank, tell the joke before 12 o'clock. And then I think after 12 o'clock, all must be revealed. Whereas they did actually reveal in the post that it was an April Fool's joke. But that wasn't enough for some people. I think one of the top comments, because people just love laughter and life. This could be super detrimental to the political race here. For those who don't swipe, they'll run with the headline and not vote Greens because they think we're pushing for this.
We are pushing for this, kind of, basically.
This could be super detrimental.
First of all, the Greens should be running on a new public holiday, by the way. Like, we should actually, I know we're saying 4-day work week, but we should literally identify the day and say, and run on that and win a lot of votes that way. But and they mean what? They think it's stupid that we would be endorsing the legalization of marijuana?
Because people will see new public holiday and go, I was going to vote Greens and now I'm not. It's super detrimental, Tom. This could be super detrimental. Jokes are bad.
Seems pretty brown to me.
But really show us the courage of your convictions, Prime Minister. Say that you're not going to take preferences from the Greens and then we'll all stand up and say, here, 3 cheers.
We're stuck with the hosts of Chapo Shithouse podcast.
Serious danger to Australia.
Well, we don't like laughter here. We like serious things. This is Serious Danger, a podcast about green politics in Australia. Not an official Greens Party podcast, produced by Michael the Griffin. I am Emerald Moon. I'm in Meanjin on Yugger and Turrbal Land. That's Tom Ballard. How are you, Tom?
Hello, Emerald. I'm well, thank you. I'm in Naarm on Wurundjeri and Bunurong country in my little house. Excited about this week's episode. We are discussing, we're going to try and round up a whole bunch of news stories in relation to the federal election. We've had the first full week of campaigning. There's some interesting policy announcements from the Greens, some movement on the old price gouging. Lots to talk about there. And we're going to be joined by our old friend, the Greens MP for Brisbane, recent viral sensation, Mr. Stephen Bates is going to be joining us. Hooray. Back on the show.
Hooray. Quickly, thank you to our new patrons, Michael, Don, Gregory, Puglisi for PM, Luke, and Valeria. Is that Leo Puglisi himself, or is it just someone who believes that Leo Puglisi should be Prime Minister?
I guess we'll never know. We don't crack open people's privacy when they become patrons.
That's okay.
We respect your privacy. We do take your money.
Privacy. Yes.
We should probably look into it in case it's like fucking Santos or something funding the podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, do we take corporate political donations? Yeah, serious danger. Well, I mean, just to be clear, it's not us taking it anyway. It all goes to keeping the show running. It pays Mike's wages. So thank you to everyone who has signed up at patreon.com/seriousdangerau. That is a big help to us and we really love you for it. And we hope you enjoyed the bonus episodes that we put out. This week we just released a deep dive on the Greens' latest defence policy and whether the Greens are now warmongers, love war. Mm-hmm. And you can decide for yourselves whether we are just being apologist hacks on that episode because who's to say? I still don't know. But yes, thank you very much to the people who contribute on the Patreon because it allows us to do those episodes, allows us to do the show at all, and to do things like the bonus candidate episodes that we've been rolling out ahead of the election.
Yes, Samantha Ratnam, my chat with her, the candidate for Wills, came out this week as well. Fantastic candidate, good conversation. The defence policy chat, really worth your while. I'm glad that we dedicated a whole
Patreon to it, because there was lots to talk about from lots of different angles, and I couldn't sort of squeeze it into last week's weekly app, talking about both the budget and the election with Nick McKim. So if you're not a patron and you've got a spare bit of cash, then we'd really appreciate your support, and you get that sweet bonus content, baby.
It's $3 a month.
Easy.
That's pretty small.
In this economy, that's still pretty cheap.
In this economy, so true.
But first tonight, we are now 1 week into the election campaign, and I think it's been a flop, to be honest, for both parties. There was no cut-through messaging on the number one issue in this country, cost of living. Where are the key policies on an economic plan to take the country forward? There were too many distractions and too much spin. In fact, if I look back at the week that was, all I can think of that stands out is, firstly, Albanese falling off the stage, then denying he fell over.
Photos with everyone, okay?
I stepped back one step. I didn't fall off the stage. Just one leg went down, but I was sweet.
Well, the fact is he fell over, and that's not the issue. But Albo, being the great pretender he is, fobbed it off as some sort of vanishing act, like it never happened, which made it even more embarrassing and even more of a distraction. He fell off the stage, then lied about it. And this is the guy who wants us to trust him.
All right, 1 weekend of Ozvotes 2025. Emerald Moon, how was your first week of the campaign? Go.
It is absolutely fucked up of you to tell me that it's been 1 week since the election was called. I don't know if this is just for those of us who are super in it, but does it feel insane to you that was only a week ago? It feels like a month of campaigning.
Oh, well, I've spent the week podcasting and attending the Melbourne Comedy Festival, which is the most effective campaigning you can do. So for me, it hasn't been too stressful, but I'm thinking of you and all my comrades, and I send you nothing but love. Do you feel comfortable talking about what you're up to, what your role is in this campaign, and where your stuff you're working on?
I'm doing some stuff, doing some things. I am working on the
making some April Fool's jokes.
Making some memes. That's right, making things happen. Yeah, I'm working on the federal campaign at the moment, and it certainly is like there is just so much going on.
Right.
But it is that thing where yes, the days are disappearing very quickly, but then also it feels like we have been campaigning for a year since last week. So my perception of time right now is really, really fucked.
How does it work? Again, this might be a bit too in the weeds or whatever, but like for an MP, for your Max Chandler Mathers, your Stephen Bates, your Libby Watson-Browse, or any Greens MP, when an election is called, you're obviously still the local member. You still have to do local electorate business, right? But you can't do party political stuff using your office resources, or like how does all that kind of work?
Well, the rules are weird because you can still MPs can use their office resources to, like, I forget the exact wording, but it's like pursue the re-election of their MP. So you can use office resources to be like, hey, vote for me, vote for me, Anthony Albanese, me, Max Chandler Mather. But you
might
can't
have
say
a recent letter from your local MP with really helpful information about how to do a postal vote. That's really just data harvesting information from you, and also laying out the achievements of the Albanese government. That's what I received in my letterbox this week.
Yeah, the Greens don't do that. If for anyone who doesn't know, if you get one of those, best thing to do is put whatever message you'd like to give the Labor Party or the Liberal Party into the envelope, the prepaid envelope, and send it off, and it'll go back to their campaign headquarters. And then rather than them just harvesting your data before they maybe pass on your postal vote application. But yeah, no, so they can electorate officers, like they still have to be an MP, but they also can kind of campaign for the MP. But there are restrictions around, and I think there are particular like caretaker conventions that I don't really know the exact rules on. But yeah, you can't tell people how to vote explicitly. You can't like say vote one for me, even though you can say support me. I think you can even say vote for me, and you can't say vote for my party. You can't say vote Greens, but you could say vote for Max Chandler Mather.
Okay.
It's fucking dumb. It's stupid.
All checks out. All right, well, let's talk about some of the stories that caught our eye this week. We've had some Greens policy announcements on protecting the environment and trying to fix the dodgy childcare industry, which was good. And there's been some interesting movement on supermarket price gouging that I'm very interested to pick your brains about. First of all, we have this Green Australia announcement. The Greens say they will push for an additional $17 billion in spending on the environment in the event of a minority government, as the minor party unveils its nature policies for the 2025 election. Greens leader Adam Bandt joined former leader Bob Brown in Adelaide on Wednesday to launch the party's Plan to Green Australia, which features a range of biodiversity, wildlife, and environmental protection pledges. So the big takeaway was the Greens' commitment to increase environmental spending in Australia to 1% of GDP. Currently, our spending is around 0.5% of GDP. That's $13.3 billion over the next 4 years. This is talking about an additional $17 billion.
Okay.
As well as $20 billion over the next decade on biodiversity restoration, $5 billion on a protected areas fund to purchase land in high biodiversity areas for protection and expansion, particularly World Heritage listing for the Great Australian Bight. Yeah, it was all launched in Adelaide with Sarah Hanson-Young, party environment spokesperson. So that was a big focus. Also, Adam tweeted out this, I didn't know this, Australia remains the global leader in mammal extinctions and are a hotspot for deforestation with an MCG worth of bushland cleared every 2 minutes.
Wow. We're constantly, outdoing ourselves for a little nation up on the leaderboard.
We're doing really well.
Yeah.
In your face, Brazil. We rule at this shit. Also talking about a Land and Sea Country Commissioner, an independent First Nations voice to guide the protection and management of Australia's environment, which I think is a great policy. It just made me think, suck on that, Advance. First Nations justice and environmental justice in one. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people saying, you guys suck at looking after the environment. Imagine that. And of course, an end to native forest logging, which we've talked about before, a moratorium on clearing koala habitat, and a climate trigger to ensure that mines and developments are properly assessed for their impacts, of course, including their climate impacts, which they currently are not. What do you reckon, Emerald?
It's good. We should do it. There's no surprises in there, right? That's all. I don't know if we've specifically announced a Land and Sea Country Commissioner before, but the rest of that sounds pretty much on track with things we've heard from the Greens. Just to clarify, so the additional $17 billion, why doesn't that include this $20 billion for biodiversity restoration? Is that not counted as environmental spending? How does that work?
Yeah, I guess that's on top of. This is extra.
It's like we're so fucked right now. We need to do this to kind of get us to a baseline, and then ongoing, it should be about 1% of GDP that we commit to.
I think so. That was sort of the big takeaway that I got. Yes, and a lot of the coverage is increasing to 1% of GDP, which I thought was an interesting framing. Right, we talked in that Patreon episode about the way we frame defense spending as saying, it should be 2.5%. Trump and the EU say we need to get defense spending to 3% of GDP. I mean, my instinct with that stuff is often it's just very arbitrary.
Yeah.
And from the military industrial complex, it's just as long as that's more money, then that's got the thumbs up from us. I suppose it's a way to frame it in terms of priority. Like if you told most people, hey, we spend less than 0.5% of GDP on protecting the environment every year, people might go, gosh, that seems kind of pretty low. And increasing it to 1% of GDP as well, it's also like, that is a lot of money, but it's also, pretty small in the grand scheme of things. So it's not like we're, exclusively concerned about environmental costs. I don't know. What do you think of that
I guess
framing?
maybe, when you tie something to GDP, you kind of tie it to the success of the nation. And so maybe you're saying that this is an essential objective or goal of the project of nation Australia, is to preserve the environment, and that if we are producing a large amount of goods or, financial value, that is reliant on our environment in many ways, and also that success means being able to spend more on our natural environment. Like I can kind of, I get that as a framing thing. You're saying that this is a priority for Project Australia,
Yeah. Well, there's certainly a lot of chat about, nature tourism, And obviously having a healthy environment is key to human flourishing and a healthy economy. There's a little bit of that chat and about how much money we make out of having a healthy environment and how destroying the environment is actually bad economically. Some of it, there's a version of that that's obviously a bit gross. Like, it's just good to have a nice environment for natural beauty, for our flourishing, for the survival of species, to have clean air and clean water. These are just good things to have in and of themselves and don't necessarily need to be placed in market terms. But of course, you would make the point that, huge parts of our economy, particularly our tourist industry, is premised on the idea that we protect our environment and there's a nature for people to come and see, right?
Yeah. Well, and I mean also there's places to grow food, like everything depends on our natural environment as well. It is interesting though, we had this conversation during the Patreon chat about defence, this question of whether the Greens are anti-capitalist. And it's like GDP is a pretty inherently capitalist measure, right? Like you're certainly buying into a capitalist concept with this policy in a way. So that does kind of lend itself to that argument that folks like the Victorian Socialists would make, that the Greens just want to make capitalism a bit better rather than dismantling it.
Didn't the guy who came up with GDP distance himself later off and said this is bad, or at least the emphasis placed on it? This is not the entire way to measure the success of a country.
Yeah. Well, the Greens policy, I believe, includes expanding what GDP takes account of to include non-economic measures. So
well-being.
Things
which I thought
shit
Labour
like
was supposed
that,
to do as well.
Which is,
The first question that Adam Bant received on this in an ABC interview was, is this policy designed to return the Greens to their environmental roots?
Which they've totally strayed from, because the Greens are not talking about the environment. Fuck you.
I mean, yeah. And look, I had to say, when I saw this policy, I was like, there you go, Advance. Is that fucking Bob Brown enough for you? Announcing a policy with Bob Brown about spending 1% of GDP? Are we still the party of Bob Brown, you crazy motherfuckers? But I mean, it was funny. It's interesting that line is taken up even by an ABC interviewer. I don't know. Do you think that's part of it? Or, of course, the Greens have got to announce this kind of policy. This is exactly primary Greens business. We haven't strayed from that. We've been talking out for economic justice and being anti-war for a very long time, as we've discussed on the show.
I think you'd be right to say that, a question like, does this help support your claim that, in contradiction of what your opponents might say, the Greens are still the best party for the environment? I think that it's just a framing question, but it's obviously this does provide a response to those accusations, I guess. Yeah,
right.
Is that the only reason the Greens are doing it? No, this is what the Greens have always done. Anyway.
Yes, we do actually care about it. The Climate Council also released their scorecard of all the policies. Maybe that's a chat for another time too. But
that's always fun.
The Greens' policy proposals is strong for the climate, and Labor is heading in the right direction.
Good for them. Good for them. I'm always reminded, I can't remember which environment NGO it was or what election, but when they literally will create a new icon for Labor effectively to go on their little scorecard, something that's basically, they didn't actually meet the requirements that we had. And so we're going to do some sort of in-between icon to be but you should still vote for them.
Maybe still vote for them or don't get mad at us. Yeah. This is interesting. Opposition environment spokesperson Jono Dunium.
Oh,
Dunium? Have you heard of this motherfucker?
Jono Dunium is their environment. What?
Dunium is the coalition opposition environment spokesperson. He said a coalition government will recognise the importance of doing what we can to protect our native flora and fauna. Coalition governments have a strong track record of delivering practical actions to conserve and enhance Australia's natural environment, all while responsibly balancing our economic interests. I have never heard of you. Who are you?
Also, there's something about doing what we can to protect our native flora and fauna. It feels like this dude just Googled environment. Define environment.
The environment is plants, trees, and animals. And money can be exchanged for goods and services.
Environment is a pretty significant portfolio. I mean, obviously, they've deliberately downgraded. Yeah. So who is this person?
He is a Tasmanian senator. He's been in the parliament since 2016.
What?
He's a millennial. He's in his early 40s.
Wow.
And you'll be shocked to learn he's contributed almost nothing to the public debate. In his Wikipedia, this is interesting, in April 2021, while being interviewed by Rita Panahi on Sky News, Dunium claimed that, I have no idea if that's how you pronounce it, by the way. Dunium? Denium?
Denium?
Let's call him Denium. Jono Denium. Claimed that Green Senator Sarah Hanson-Young had exposed her young niece to danger by involving her in environmental protest at a logging worksite. The claim was false, and Denium apologised to Hanson-Young. Sky News agrees to pay $40,000 plus legal costs to settle a defamation action brought by Hanson-Young.
Damn.
Cool interview, dude.
Yeah, that's it's not really what you want to get out of an interview. And yet we've never heard of this man. Okay, well, good for him. He's contributed something, $40,000, which I would hope or assume that Sarah Hanson-Young donated somewhere. I guess.
Oh, well, that would, yeah, probably would have. Oh, and plus legal costs. Oh, yeah, so that would have included. Yes, I'm sure she would have. That's. I think she's done that kind of thing before.
Yeah.
And yes, $40K off Rupert Murdoch that's a win. I'll take it.
So thanks, Denium.
Thanks, Denium. Thanks, Jono. The bad Jono. The dark Jono.
The dark Jono. You just can't deny him.
All right. Also on childcare, there was a recent Four Corners story on the childcare industry in Australia. It is worth $20 billion. And what do you know it? For-profit childcare centres are really dodgy and they're ripping people off. They're cutting corners. They're employing underqualified staff, all, of course, to boost profits and doing things like serving kids meals budgeted at just 33 cents.
Now that's thrifty.
That's thrifty as. They're kids. They don't need good food.
They don't really like eating anyway.
Yeah. The report found that 10% of centres have never been assessed, and there's a whole lot of outrage. The New South Wales Parliament initiated inquiry in response to this Four Corners story. The Greens called for a royal commission into the industry, and this week the party announced a policy to spend $1.5 billion over the next 4 years to establish an independent early childhood education and care commission. It'd be modelled on the ACCC. It'd regulate the sector, enforce safety and quality standards, coordinate national policy with the states and territories, of course, because there isn't a sort of national approach to this stuff, just enforcing basic guidelines. And it would be tasked with driving universal free childcare and prioritise funding for high-quality public and not-for-profit providers. So a lot of chat, of course, about how expensive childcare is, and it's completely understandable. And, you would have to give some credit to the Labor government for doing more to try and, subsidise childcare way more, using that, viewing that as an economic measure to allow people to have their kids looked after while they go to work. But this report, which I have not seen, but my understanding of it is, much like the aged care sector, you've got these cowboys cutting corners to maximise profits and reduce costs as much as possible to make as much profit as possible. And it's completely unregulated. All the regulations that do exist simply unenforced. So that seems to be what this policy is about.
Which is pretty wild when you're considering like this is literal children. And it's a good point. I honestly, as someone who doesn't have kids, I hadn't thought about this too much. I'm like, yes, I can see that it would be a huge expense to send your kid to childcare. It should be free. But if you are someone who loves your children and you just have to send them somewhere else for whatever it is, 8 hours a day, surely that would be a worry of yours. You would be like, I would like to know that they're getting cared for quite well. So surely this would be important to a lot of parents. As with any kind of commission like this, I imagine the devil would be in the detail. It would depend on how much power they actually have to enforce standards, or whether they're just a nice oversight body that tables a report to Parliament every quarter and collects the check for the board. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and again, it's just like, why have a private market in this area? Like, think about competition. How easy is it really to move your kid around to lots of different childcare centres? I mean, I know people do that. My understanding is it's a fucking nightmare. And, of course, people are restricted by geography. They just want their local childcare centre to be well-funded and well-run. Not for profit, but or you could have models like, my brother, his nieces go to a childcare centre that's run by the parents, right?
I was going to say, what about family daycare? Because that's what what I went to. And I was talking to my mum about this the other week, actually, because I was like, what is family daycare? And I didn't realise that what it is it's run in people's homes. So, I mean, I think I had, and her philosophy was it's good to have a mix of that, like family daycare and that kind of maybe more structured environment where you can learn skills from, I guess, professional educators, early childhood educators. But yeah, like I do like even though I was expelled from family daycare. That's another story.
What?
Yeah,
What
she didn't,
for?
I don't know, being too troublesome.
Being too radical, I guess.
Too radical, truly. Yeah.
That's a good policy. And finally, I thought this was worth a mention. On Sunday last week, we had Adam Bant talking to The Guardian. The Greens leader says he was getting ready to go for a run on Sunday morning when he heard that Labor was adopting a plan to outlaw price gouging by supermarkets, and he was happy about it. Another day and another Greens policy that the Prime Minister has adopted. Their first step is to say no, and then they adopt them. And we take that as a really good sign.
This is my new favourite line. I've been doing this just when I wake up in the morning, turning to my boyfriend going, another day, another Greens policy adopted by Labor. It sets the tone for the day. It's good.
So should we be actually I saw a little bit of coverage of this which is a little bit more like, oh, they're copying us, they're stealing our homework kind of vibe, which I'm like, I'm not crazy about that, but yes, isn't it the general attitude is we put out these great policies, we talk about them, and we want Labor to take them and adopt them and realize that they're good.
Yeah, the problem is, which we've probably said on the show before, the problem is when Labor half copies something and the media and the media reports it as them fully delivering this same policy, which then means you get half of it and you lose the momentum to push for the full benefit. And I don't know if the Labor policy is exactly the same as the Greens on this one. It sounds like it is you're shaking your head. I was going to say it sounds pretty similar, but what are the differences?
Well, in terms of the full suite of what we want to do when it comes to tackling price gouging in supermarkets, no. We talked at length about the Greens policy on price gouging back in EP 166. That's just a few episodes ago in early March. Basically establishing a prices commission to monitor for price gouging. They could make recommendations to the ACCC, who could then enforce heavy fines through the court system. The fines would be relative to how much they're ripping people off. It's based on the EU model when it comes to, considering and defining price gouging, and would work alongside divestiture powers. That is breaking up these motherfuckers to reduce their market power. That is a position that the coalition has kind of adopted. They're like, yes, we're into intervening and divestiture powers in extreme circumstances as a last resort. Labor does not support divestiture powers and breaking up the supermarkets.
Yeah.
So, yes, so it is different in that respect. But in terms of price gouging specifically, yes, Labor is talking about making price gouging illegal and setting up a task force within the ACCC to go after price gouging and to crack down on it specifically, and they would enforce those regulations through fines. So, yes, it is pretty much similar.
They're very similar because they come from this report. Is that right, from the committee report?
We had this ACCC report, yes. So the Greens were talking about, hey, you should release this report that the government's been sitting on when it comes to supermarket price gouging. They did release that report a couple of weeks ago. The ACCC found that Australian supermarkets are among the most profitable in the world. They were described as operating as an oligopoly. You got Woolies with 38% of the market, Coles with 29%, and Aldi of 9%. So, yeah, pretty big fucking players. They found that Coles and Woolworths boosted profits by ramping up prices during the cost of living crisis and used vague promotions to make it harder to judge good shopping deals. It found that prices had surged since 2019, eggs costing 47% more than they did and milk 34% more. But apparently, this report did not find any clear evidence of price gouging.
So what definition were they using of price gouging in this report?
Well, that's a very good question. What is price gouging? What does it mean? What's the definition that the Greens talk about a lot? Can you remind people of that?
That's the one that we were saying is, I believe, based on the EU model, which has specific considerations, but they are subjective and they're to be determined, I guess, in the first instance by the ACCC and then enforced by the courts. And they are whether the price is excessive relative to the cost, whether the price is excessive relative to the economic value of the product provided, and whether it's excessive compared to if there was greater competition in the market. But that's all reliant on your understanding of what excessive is. That would be up to some human to decide.
And price, and so by that definition, it would be relative to the cost of the product, right? So price gouging will mean different things for different products. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Cost, the economic value, and also taking into account the competition element, like whether they've used their competitive advantage or their position in a duopoly or an oligopoly to charge more than they should.
So this is when it gets all, very woolly to me. And the coalition is saying Albanese's policy is stupid. He can't even define price gouging. Albanese sort of said, well, we know that price gouging is illegal in the EU and in the UK. It would be left up to the courts. But I mean, the 9 Fairfax papers went with the headline, "There's no proof big supermarkets are price gouging, but Labor will ban it anyway." Which is kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm like, I want to know what this report called price gouging. Because if you ask me, the supermarkets are charging excessive amounts relative to cost based on the profits that they're raking in.
Yes, the most profitable in the fucking world. And the report has lines like this: Coles and Woolworths' market shares are increasing and they face no rivals of comparable scope and scale. In an oligopolistic...
That's a really... I hate this fucking word. They put this in here to fuck us.
in an
oligopolistic
market structure, thank you, such as this, they have little incentive to beat each other on price. I mean, I don't know, seems like they're gouging us from my point of view. Wikipedia says that price gouging is a pejorative term for the practice of increasing the prices of goods, services, or commodities to a level much higher than is considered reasonable or fair by some.
All right, I'm just going to say it. Cheese is too expensive. Much higher than considered reasonable or fair.
Yes, we're reasonable people. I mean, it's like, I don't know, do you define what is an excessive profit margin? Anyway, I guess the Greens would say this would all be left up to the courts, but it would also be modelled on the EU, where price gouging is defined as excessive or unfair charging as a result of a lack of competition. So,
do you think the CATA model, for example, would be better? Where I think, what did they say? It's 100% or something. They would set a specific percentage markup cap on the, like, from supplier to retailer, and that's how they would address supermarkets, price gouging. Not that I'm sure whether they've used that word, but that's a clearer thing than quote unquote price gouging. But I guess the argument is, realistically, you need to allow for consideration of all context. But does it then I suppose the court would have to, their decisions would have to reflect what they think a reasonable person in Australia would think about the price, taking into account all of those factors. I wonder how they would do that. I'd love to see them try. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I just think it would end up with you having to take a position on a 30%, 40%, 50% profit margin on this item is excessive, which I'm all for. I mean, profit is theft. Profit is theft.
Yes.
And everything should be free. The end.
Not an official Greens Party podcast.
Actually, just very quickly, I just want to mention this last bit. That I found this out when researching. This comes from an article in October of last year. The Greens have established a Robin Hood election pitch, saying they would tax excessive corporate profits to the tune of $514 billion over a decade in order to pay for the party's election plan. So I hadn't heard that specific number yet. We talk about, we'll fund this by taxing the corporations and big businesses, making them pay their fair share. I assume that's at $51.4 billion a year. We can is the estimate of that. And so over the next decade, we've got $500 billion to play with, which
I don't know if it would be an even amount each year, because it might. Anyway, right. That might be different. But I feel like I have heard this before. I feel like they did announce this number. I thought it was maybe around the time of the tax billionaires to fix your teeth thing.
Sure.
Which, by the way, did you see, just quickly, maybe to cap this off in terms of the news this week, did you see Adam Bant on ABC Breakfast morning of when we're recording this with a giant toothbrush? And so it's really good because he's got this giant toothbrush there to be like, the Greens in balance of power will push to bring dental into Medicare. But then they get into all these other discussions. And so he's still holding this giant toothbrush and being like, well, what Trump's doing with these tariffs, you know?
No, I think Palestine should be free, and I believe in human rights for everybody.
Good stuff.
Oh, pop it down, mate. Treat yourself.
Prime Minister, why would you invite Donald Trump to Australia when you've got a Temu Trump sitting right opposite you?
I will allow the member to rephrase that question.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister still. Given Trump's attacks on democracy and Western institutions and even threatening our allies and even the PBS, why would you invite him to Australia?
I thank the member for Brisbane for his question. And Australia has a long-standing relationship with the United States as our important ally since the Second World War.
All right, here's the Greens member for Brisbane, the spokesperson for LGBTIQA+ and youth, and the latest viral sensation on the internet. Please welcome Stephen Bates.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Hello, Stephen.
Viral sensation is a praise.
Yeah. Have we had you on the show since you won?
I think you co-hosted with me. I think that was maybe post-election.
Maybe not.
That was in there.
Yeah.
But it's been a while.
Yeah. So funny. I think when we interviewed you, we did a bonus candidate episode in 2022, and I think it was you and Elizabeth together, because we were like, here are two Greens that are having a crack and probably, giving it a good go.
God bless.
Give it a good hot go.
Indeed you did. So, and we were, we thought now's a good time to have you on before the election, and particularly given you did have a video that went, Tom says you went viral. I guess we could say, you were a viral sensation last week with this question time question for the Prime Minister, where you officially got Temu Trump on the Hansard. Well done.
Well achieved.
Was that, when did you decide that you wanted, that was the goal? to get it on Hansard. Was that a thing?
Well, it's funny. I sort of talked about, I wanted to ask the question that I asked.
The actual question, which we'll get to. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, no one's going to really pay attention to this. And so, how do I wake up people in the chamber and wake up the press gallery? And it was actually partly Larissa's idea as well. She sort of threw it out in a meeting that morning, and I was like, oh, that's really good. I think we should actually ask that question.
Yeah.
And so I had it ready, and I wasn't nervous or anything. I was like, I'm genuinely curious, how people are going to respond to this.
It was funny. Yeah. I was just going to say, when you look at the way that the Liberal front bench reacts, it is really interesting because Dutton is just kind of smirking on his phone. But the Liberal front benchers, clearly they think we should be looking really disgusted. What he said is just so disgraceful. Yeah. And then when they see that Dutton is smiling, they're like, oh, no, we're taking this as it's a joke. It's okay. We're not bothered. So I thought that was quite funny.
I know. Lessons on civility from the LNP. Who would have thought? But it was funny. I think that Dutton loves being the villain. He loves being the villain. It's one of his favorite things to be. So I think that's why he had a bit of a laugh at it. But the funny thing as well, I was the thing I was most nervous about was you cannot laugh while you're asking this question. I wanted to be as deadpan as possible. But I think in the video, you can kind of see my lips curl at the end because I was like, oh, this is funny.
Yes.
But
funny.
it was it got a good reaction, and I knew it had gone into the zeitgeist when there's this little convenience store at the bottom of my building where I live, and I went in there a few nights ago to what was I buying? I think I was buying Tim Tams or something, and the guy behind the counter was
True patriot.
I know, the guy behind the counter was like, "Are you an MP?" And I was like, oh, yeah, I am. And he's like, I saw your video. It was really funny. And I was like, okay, we've hit the normies now.
Yes.
It's gone into the zeitgeist. But the next morning after that question time, I was at one of the schools in my electorate for their leadership, one of their leadership induction assemblies. and I got there and all the like student leaders were like, loved your video. It was so funny. And then a bunch of the parents and the teachers were saying it as well. And I was like,
so funny.
We seem to have like popped off at like a really convenient time. So
yeah.
Struck a chord. Do we have the origin of Temu Trump? Is that an Amy Remekas
I
phrase
messaged Amy to apologize for stealing her line. And she was very gracious. And I can't remember exactly what she said, but it was like, go off, Queen. Like, it was fine. I think Amy coined it, and then Batuta has like talked about it as well. I've seen them posted in some of their things, but now I like to think that it's sort of like cemented in the vernacular, and everyone can have it.
Yes, everyone understands. It belongs to the people now. Well, I think the funny thing was that, and Mike actually brought this up because Mike saw a version of the video that was posted by someone else, like some other account, and it didn't include the full question, or at least like he hadn't seen it. And he was like, what do we, like, you know, it's kind of, is it a bit weird to waste a question like that, or to just like spend your time in Parliament just making a joke question, like, is there a concern that, people will be like, is that really what we want our MPs doing? And I thought that was funny because obviously, like you said, if you watch the full video, you do the kind of gag question. The speaker goes, all right, you little bastard, try again. Have another crack. And then you ask a real question about, you know, Trump's attacks on democracy, Western institutions, threatening the PBS, and asking Albanese, well, why would you invite him to Australia? Did you have concerns about people just remembering like the Temu Trump bit and not the rest?
Not really in the moment, but I think a lot of people haven't actually like even from like the sort of insights of the actual video, like we can see it on Instagram and TikTok, and most people aren't making it past the first 15 seconds. So I think people aren't actually seeing the follow-up, which like is whatever. That's kind of just politics. But I did ask that question knowing that it would be out of order, and so that I would get a chance to ask my actual question as well.
But
like, I think part of it, like when you're trying to like combat the rise of the far right and like literal fascism, I think you have to mock it. Like, I think like we've sort of seen them try in America with like sort of all the civility and blah, 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 blah. And it clearly has not worked. And it's not worked twice now. And so I think part of it is using these moments to actually make the people on the right feel dumb and feel stupid, because a lot of their ideas that they're like flying around with now are dumb and stupid, and they should feel like they should feel mocked by it. So I think it's a legitimate way to do that. And also, like, Question Time is not this bastion of democracy that people
Yes, yes, it is theatre. Like, that's the thing. You're not changing the world with one question. Like,
and like that's the thing. And it's like, it gets attention on it. It makes people, I think, realize that it is theatre, but also like, I think it makes people, the point of it as well was to put it in people's minds that Dutton actually is like he wants to be Trump. Like, he says that he's a big thinker and loves him and has like poached so many of his policy ideas. Like, it's about putting that two and two together for people in there as much as anything as well.
Yeah.
Which is starting to hurt him, right? This is the biggest conversation, the bigger conversation. People say that Dutton's saying, Trump won and we love Trump and we want to get a little bit Trumpy in Australia. People saying, most Australians are going, no, thank you. This guy fucking sucks. And he stands for stuff that we're deeply opposed to. We don't want anything from the American medical or pharmaceutical industry, anything to do with our healthcare here, a system here in Australia. Thank you very much. And Albanese has to sort of, walk this stupid line in which he's sort of saying, oh, I'm standing up to Trump, but then also we're really good friends. We've been mates forever and we really like them and they're a reliable partner, even though it's currently being run by one of the most insane men in the fucking world. Exposing those contradictions, I think, is valuable. There's something to that.
Yeah, no, it is interesting, I think. And that was also kind of the point of asking the more serious question after was like, Albo goes around, like you said, Emerald, saying, oh, Dutton's like bad and he's similar to Trump and blah, 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 blah. And then it's sort of like, okay, well, if you think that, then logic reasoning stands to say that you would also think this, but you clearly don't. And his answer was like, oh, we're like besties with America and we have been since World War II. And I love everything they do and they're amazing and yada, yada, yada. And it's kind of like, okay, bro, like that's not the vibe. And like, if you actually were out there speaking to regular people, like you would know that people are really like afraid of what is happening over there at the moment and are questioning like the alliance with them and whether like how far down this path do we go. Basically, it's like literally I remember sitting in the chamber right before I asked the question and got this alert on this news alert on my phone that was like Republicans seek to abolish US federal court. And I was like, where's the line on this? Like, if you want to be an ally with like this like emerging fascist regime, that's your business. But I don't think we should have anything to do with that.
Yes. Yeah. So I think I think you're right. I think that that question helped to kind of draw out that, first of all, it shows, like it highlights the fact that Dutton is aligning himself with Trump, which he has been. I mean, he's talking about cutting the Department of Education, like cracking down on, woke ideology, in schools, while at the same time trying to be like, oh no, I'm going to stand up to Trump. Albanese is doing a little bit more of, line walking as well. They're both trying to be like, oh no, maybe we like Trump, maybe we don't. I mean, this question, I did want to get a bit more into of like goofing versus governing. This is how I'm thinking of it. Goofing versus governing. And when you're trying to run an election campaign, I think you in particular have got a bit of a reputation for this because in 2022, you also went semi-viral for running Grindr ads. If we could remind folks of what a few of them said, put Stephen on top. The best parliaments are hung. You always come first with the Greens. Like, you have this history. All true. You have this history of using kind of silly little, cheeky, innovative campaign tactics to pursue, what is arguably a serious agenda, a social democratic agenda for positive change in this country. But I've noticed a little bit of criticism creeping in of the Greens when people perceive that balance to be slightly off. Like the Greens are doing a lot on TikTok, they're doing a lot of trending videos, and people are like, why are you spending all your time making stupid videos that might actually decrease your, draw away from some of that respect for you as a serious prospect for somewhat leading the country? Like, how do we strike that balance?
That is such a good question, because I think talking about the Grindr ads, I think that was, I think they worked well because they were, yes, tongue in cheek, but also like kind of like best parliaments are hung joke as like a political joke at the same time. So it's sort of like, it's walked that line quite well.
It's not just like, vote Stephen, I've got a big cock. Like,
also a valid reason to support it.
That's right. I'm sure that was in the mix, the pitches, but you decided to go with the best parliaments are hung.
Yeah, exactly right. But I think like part of it as well is also like people want to be communicated with in very different ways. And there's different ways of communicating with different groups of people. And I think like there's so many young people and so many people actually who are on social media platforms like Instagram Reels and TikTok and yada, 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 that if you're not communicating with those groups of people in the way that they wish to be communicated with, then you're basically forgoing entire demographics of people in the political sphere that we actually need to reach and need to communicate with. Like these are people, like just off the top of my head, people who maybe on these platforms may be completely disengaged from like mainstream media, news media, anything like that. But when you appear doing some sort of trend in their feed, that may be the first time that they engage with something political. It may be the first time that they engage with that side of politics. It may be the first time they engage with that specific idea that you're trying to talk about in that video. I also think they serve in a sort of similar ways the Temu Trump stuff did. It serves as a bit of a gateway. It sort of hooks people by being like, oh, this guy can sort of like laugh at himself or like doesn't take himself too seriously. I can relate to X person that I'm seeing in this video. And it might make someone go into the profile and go to the website and read the policies. It might make someone look at your previous videos or your previous posts where you might have something really, really serious in there where you're talking about healthcare or education or the climate or whatever it may be. I think it's important that people understand the function of them as it sort of serves as that gateway into broader political conversations. And I think attention spans get shorter and shorter because of things like social media. It's about being able to hook people and get them interested straight off the bat as a way to sort of give them permission to care about the more serious stuff. And I think that the world is already super overwhelming for a lot of people at the moment. And there's a lot going on. And so being able to have like a little bit of a laugh and do something maybe a little bit lighthearted is a nice break for people as well. And another way to get them interested and get them involved and get them to look that little bit deeper.
Are we doing Grindr ads again this year? And if so, do we have new lines?
We are doing Grindr ads again this year. And we also will be doing something extra as well, which...
Something extra
because I don't think doing the same thing twice, yes, but like I want to one-up myself. So there will be something extra that will be coming.
You want to put one up yourself? Is that what you're saying? What?
No, I want to I don't know. I was just like, we could do Grindr ads again. Yeah, but like we've done it. It's been done. So we do have a couple of new lines, like sort of like for the actual ads. So like there's a put a one in my box, like vote one Greens. There's a couple of other new ones in there that'll I think
isn't there something about your something member, your strong member?
Your strong local member. Yeah.
Member.
That's right.
Fuck me in the boy pussy, vote one Stephen Bates, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah, 100% nailed it. But yes, I can't tell you what it is yet, but this is the first time that I've
okay.
publicly.
Sizzle. Okay, sizzle.
There is something else that's coming, and I think it's very, very good and very funny, but it also talks about a serious issue as well. So I think it'll be, I think it will be thoroughly enjoyed.
All right, love. Yeah, I think like the balance for me is also keeping it's not like doing this stuff still has a level of respect for the voters. It's not saying ordinary people are too stupid or young people are too stupid to engage in a serious way with politics. And so the only way to reach them is with memes. As you say, I think it's acknowledging that algorithmically you're simply probably just not going to end up in a lot of people's feeds unless you do like trending content. And then it's not as though, the information's not there. If they were to then, maybe just explore a little bit further, there's so much more detail that the Greens release about their policies than any of the other parties do anyway. So
100%. And that's the thing. It's like and it's also about experimenting and like seeing what things work and what doesn't. Like, I know I've tried putting up memes in the past and they've like completely flopped. But if you actually do a video where like you might talk about policy and then you just do a random cartwheel in it, it gets tens of thousands of views. So it's sort of about,
I
like you said,
that one.
it's like finding that balance and sort of figuring out what works. So, but a lot of it is just, like kind of like the game with social media. You just got to sort of throw shit at the wall and see what sticks.
And then, Nick McKim last week talking about his gaming, right? Like playing Fortnite and talking about Greens policies while doing it, getting huge views and obviously putting those ideas and those conversations in front of probably a lot of people who weren't familiar with them before. Yeah, a fun way to talk about something serious, which is backed up by serious policy work at the same time. That's probably the sweet spot, I think. Yeah.
Yes. Well, we need you to be doing things that are creative and that are going to work in order to keep your seat because, to be frank, it is one of the most at risk for the Greens. It's the most marginal. In fact, like it's so marginal in your seat. It took, how long did it take to get the result? I just remember there was like so many days of counting in 2022.
I think that trauma blocked the exact number of days, but I think it was definitely at least a week. I think it was 8 or 9 days. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was super close, particularly because the Greens actually finished third and then it was the flow of preferences that ended up bumping you into second in order to take the seat. I had a look. It was even on that three-party preferred, so when it was just Greens, Labor and LNP after distribution of preferences, it was less than 2,000 votes between you and Labor in third. And some of that, which I remember we spoke about after the election, there was this thing where the Animal Justice Party, bizarrely, on their how to vote cards, recommended people preference Labor above the Greens, which could have potentially meant that the Greens didn't win that seat. But ultimately, Animal Justice Party voters overwhelmingly were like, I think I'm more aligned with the Greens than the Labor Party. And, so you did end up getting the seat, which is a good example, I guess, of our preferential voting system working well. But yes, it's a super tight contest. I guess, I'm curious to know what you think when you're thinking about this. Obviously, you must be thinking about it all the time. What do you think it's going to come down to that will determine whether it goes one way or the other if you're able to keep the seat?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if I could narrow it down to just one
It's
thing.
probably a bunch of things, yeah.
Yeah. I would say, well, the biggest thing that we're having on the doors and at all the events we're doing and everything is cost of living, housing in particular, healthcare, environment, and then actually also like what is happening in America actually comes up quite a lot for people.
Yeah.
Way more than I thought it was going to. So I think in that sort of space, I think what it's going to come down to is really who people believe has the best plan and who people believe genuinely gets them and has their back. Because I think it's one thing to sort of have like, you can go around saying, oh, we've, like if you're like Labor, oh, we've spent this much and we've done this much and blah, 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 blah. But if you're just going around saying those things and you're not actually relating to people where they're at, and where people are at is they're feeling worse off than they were 3 years ago and they see the world crumbling around them. Like, people aren't going to support you because you're not getting where they're at and you're not understanding the situation they're in and where they're coming from. And so I think that I'm quite lucky to be in a position where, you know, I have like a much more working class background than the people that are running against me at this siege, like by a long way. Like I've worked in hospital.
Well, you were working in a retail job at an Apple store in 2022. Your opponents were the Liberal candidate who is, you know, a politician. What was he before he was a politician? Trevor Evans?
It's the CEO of the retail lobby.
Love. And then the Labor candidate is the fucking head of Deloitte, consulting firm Deloitte. So, yeah, I think it's fair to say that you've got a strong working class background, which, by the way, sorry, I have to pause on this because I have noticed that in 2022, it was pretty openly available, the information that the Labor candidate was the head of Deloitte. This time round, strangely scrubbed from all of their materials. Madonna is just someone who has vaguely, quote, worked in the private sector. She is the head of Deloitte, which Labor claims to be, you know, going after these consultants. We have these reports about kind of rampant, you know, influence and corruption in the consulting industry. Labor saying they're going to crack down on consulting firms. And their candidate is the head of Deloitte. Anyway.
Yeah, look, I think you're absolutely right. Like, I have noticed that as well. Like, it's all sort of been scrubbed compared to previously. So obviously, like, they think that it's a risk. Like, and they think that, well, people probably won't vibe with this. Like, if we put it out there.
It's not really the zeitgeist.
Yeah, but I think like that sort of like cements like the issue for me anyway. It's sort of like these other parties are putting up candidates that have sort of like next to no real connection to what is actually happening to regular people on the ground. Whereas like someone like myself does, because I have lived it until like right up until the moment I got elected, and for a little bit after as well. Because
where you were waiting for that pay to come in.
I was like, oh, I have to go back and like, we literally have like journos that we call and be like, oh, can you do this like interview now? And I'd be like, oh, I actually have to go and do a shift because I have no money. So I could chat to you in my lunch break, but like, that's what you're going to have to deal with. And so I think it's like I feel like confident when I talk about these things, like talking about housing, cost of living, healthcare, climate, whatever it may be, is because for me, it's not this like abstract idea that people are struggling to pay the rent or like can't afford to buy a house or whatever it may be. It's because, oh no, like that was my life. And that is the life of literally everyone in my social circle and everyone around me. Like literally my group of friends are still people who like work in retail, who work in like the public sector, like all these like sort of more entry level jobs. And it's sort of like, well, yeah, I hear these stories because this is literally how people around me live and how people around me are struggling to get by. And so it's not this detached reality that I can just talk about in the abstract like the major parties do. It's like, oh no, actually everyone in my community that I engage with and know is living this way. And that is why I am fighting for these policies, for the Greens policies and for the Greens values, because I see them as the best solution to the people that I know in my community who are struggling. And so for me, I think that's an advantage because like it comes from a place of passion and comes from a place of like actually giving a genuine shit, which I think is like a rare quality maybe in politics. It's sort of like, oh no, because if I'm not there fighting for these things, I have to go face my friends. Like who will be like,
yes,
because you didn't do this. And so it's like, whereas like, yeah, if you're from the major parties and like, I don't know, you just go to your donors and you're like, oh yeah, like we did it. Well done, guys. Like it actually does, it has like no meaningful impact on these people. Whereas I feel like that's an advantage that I have. It's like I actually get it because I've lived it and everyone around me is living it as well. So yeah, it becomes so personal. And I think that is what gives, that is an advantage that I definitely think I have, especially in this seat, because it is like the second youngest in the country and it's like 50% of the seat are renters, like so, with like all these intergenerational issues, particularly around housing, like I felt so acutely in the seat of Brisbane that, yeah, we need someone who looks like us and who has lived like us to be able to get us and represent us.
Yeah. And then maybe the challenge is getting more people to see, like, to know who you are and know what you stand for. And if we can do that, I would say, that potentially would be what it would come down to, is my analysis. And I'm sure, yes, then you are trying to figure out every single way that you can to achieve that.
Yeah.
Are there what can people do, like people who are in Brisbane, I guess, to start, and then people who aren't, to support your campaign?
If you're living in Brisbane and you remotely like the sound of what we're doing, please get involved. Like volunteering is the number one thing that people can do at the moment. So obviously, like we've got all these far right groups like Advance Australia and Australians for Prosperity who have literally millions of dollars and are throwing millions of dollars into the sea. But the thing that they struggle with is the thing that the Greens do so well with, and that's people power. And so the best way we're going to defeat their money is with people. And so we've got, the campaign is already so much bigger than it was 3 years ago, which is fantastic. So we've already got so many people on the ground, but we can never have too many. You know, it's all about having those conversations one-on-one with people. It's about being out there and giving people hope that things can be better and things can change for the better, because that's what we need right now in politics is genuinely a bit of hope for people. People feel very overwhelmed and apathetic. And part of our job is to be out there giving people hope. And so you can volunteer. That's amazing. Like we do so many events all the time, markets, door knocks, these community barbecues. We just had one last night where we had like 50, 60 people come in the rain in Paddington to it, which
it was
incredible.
raining last night. Wow.
Yeah, it was like pouring and miserable. And I was like, oh, I hope people come. And then we served like 60 meals. So I was like, oh, that's fantastic. So yeah, volunteering and getting out there on the ground is the number one most beneficial thing that people can do. Sometimes things as well as simple as like sharing things on social media. Like if you see the videos, if you see the Temu Trump thing, sharing it with your friends and sending it around, because it gets us out there into people's minds and into the zeitgeist, which is also really, really good. Like you're saying, Emerald, that's part of the reason why we do these things. Like last time when we did the Grindr ads, that was a gateway to getting on. I don't even remember how many shows and radio things. And people obviously will start by asking you, oh, why did you do this? Oh, because it was this. Anyway, let's talk about dental and medical.
Yes.
Anyway, socialism.
Like,
let's go.
Got you.
Oh, that's really funny.
Yeah, I'm gay. It's crazy. Anyway, we need to redistribute wealth immediately from the capitalist class to make ordinary people's lives better. Oh, okay. Thanks for coming on, Stephen.
Yeah, things like that genuinely help. Like if you see something that's like popping up, sharing it as well, because then that gets our message out there as well. And that actually applies to people right across the country. You know, if you're seeing things that the Greens are sharing or that I'm sharing that you think are maybe funny or you think are intriguing or you think are interesting and that people might relate to, is genuinely sharing it, because I know the Temu Trump thing now has been viewed by 5 million people. So like it gets out there and makes people like Google us, Google their candidates and actually look at what the policies are. So like we've noticed like traffic has gone up so much into like my website and like with what's happening since that, which is really, really good, because people are like, this guy was funny. Oh, that was a good question. Oh, I like this politics. Oh, wait, this guy's my MP already. I should vote for him. Things like that are a really good gateway for people as well. And because so many people are tuning off the normal sort of ways of interacting with politicians, whether it's through like news media or whatever it may be, like the social side of it is really, really important. So being able to share things around like that is really incredible. But yeah.
Yes.
Good one.
Well, thank you so much, Stephen. Before we let you go, also wanted to remind people, call to action, yes, get involved with campaigns. Brisbane, if you're in Brisbane, but wherever you are, there's so much shit happening. There's launches, door knocks, there's calling parties, data entry, whatever. Booths are getting rostered so you can get in a voting booth. But urgently, especially if you are currently living in a seat that is held by the Greens or potentially winnable by the Greens, update your frickin' enrollment, people. It closes tomorrow. When this episode comes out on Sunday, it is closing, I believe, 8 p.m. on Monday, the 7th of April. aec.gov.au. Update your enrollment. Tell your friends. Tell your renter friends who are constantly having to move around, etc., to make sure that they are enrolled. Please.
If you're not thinking of voting Greens, don't worry about that. That's not good. That's not important.
Oh, yeah. Or if you were in a Greens electorate and you moved out, don't worry about it. Well, I wouldn't tell you not to. I wouldn't tell you not to update your enrollment. But I'm just saying.
Authorised by Stephen Bates, Brisbane. Show the Greens.
Legal, I have to say something, kids.
All right, thank you, Stephen. Thanks for joining us, man. And good luck for the election. And thanks everybody for listening. Goodbye.
Guys.
Bye.
Serious danger to Australia.